will control the vertical.
Welcome to Anthologic, the TV anthology podcast. I am your host, Mark. Anthologic is a podcast dedicated to exploring the good, the bad, and the odd of horror, science fiction, and the best of mystery suspense anthology shows and series on TV. Join me as we slip through the cracks of reality to approach the extremes of experience, where we can peruse the stories and art of a sinister fairground of strange and wonderful rides. And now we go on to the show that is the focus of this particular episode. Welcome to this episode of Anthologic with your host, Mark. Right, so we have the Christmas episodes behind us now for 2021, where we went through, I think, 3 Ghost Stories for Christmas episodes. We are now returning back to the usual format, and this one starts with a Night Gallery episode. We are talking Season 2, Episode 9. Yeah, well, this one is got 4 stories, 2 of which I liked a lot, 2 of which I didn't like so much. So let's just jump into this. The first one is one called House with Ghost. It's directed by Gene Kearney, and the main actors in it are Bob Crane and Joanne Worley. But there's a few others, notable ones, which I'll talk about as we go through. The episode first aired on November the 17th, 1971, and it's... This first segment was a little weak. It was based on a story about August Derleth, and I read that story. It's a very short, very, very, very short story, and in fact, it's a pretty weak short story in that form. They actually improve some of the narrative in it in the TV version. They make it a little more sensible, but it had its problems. Essentially, an American couple are in London, and played by Bob Crane and Joanne Worley, and the husband feels boxed in. He says he doesn't really like the flat they're borrowing. They swap their house with someone else's. So someone from London is staying in their US house, but he wants to get out of it, and he suggests they rent somewhere in the countryside. And his wife is kind of into spiritualism and something. He finds this advert for, say, properties with ghosts, with or without ghosts. Essentially, however, we find out he's a philanderer, and he's got another lady on the line, and he wants to kill his wife. She suffers from dizzy spells, so he specifically rents a place with a long staircase and a history of a ghost haunting the staircase, so he's hoping she will plummet to his death. Now, there's a few problems with this one. It's kind of tries to be funny, and it's not very funny, and it tries to be scary, and it's not very scary. That's kind of the issue. In addition, there's a few cast members in it who are better than Bob Crane. Now, Bob Crane seems to be the most active actor in the episode. Joanne Worley's fine. She's not given much to do, but she's totally fine. But Bob Crane is not a great actor, and it's sort of weird watching this one. Bob Crane is a philanderer because, unfortunately, I know some of the history of Bob Crane, the actor. I watched a film called Autofocus a number of years ago, talking about his sex addiction and his sort of isolation and his strange lifestyle, and it kind of jibes with his character here. But unfortunately, he's not a very good actor, so he can't really sell it. And there's also some inconsistencies in his performance and what's going on. Basically, he wants to kill his wife. And at one point, he finds out his wife is only got months to live anyway, and he looks very concerned. But it doesn't come across as a man pretending to act concerned. It comes across as a man concerned, so it doesn't quite work. He hasn't got the acting skill to portray as acting someone faking concern, if that makes sense. So it feels inconsistent. However, it goes on, and we see some quite poor special effects of the ghosts sort of cutting luggage with razor blades, for example, to make it fall over and stuff like this. And also, once he realises his wife's going to die anyway, he doesn't want to kill her anymore. He kind of wants to wait till she just dies anyway. She's obviously got the purse strings in this. It's not very clear from the story, but she's got the purse strings. Now, we get a few side actors here. I think it's Bernard Fox is one, as a man who's first rented a property. Actually, I could have that wrong. It might be Eric. There's an older man that Bob Crane's character interacts with to rent a house. He's pretty damn good. And later on, we have a doctor, an English doctor, who he has to interact with, played by Alan Napier, who was most famous for playing Alfred Pennyworth in the 60s Batman series. British, fairly upright, plays it fairly straight in that, and he does it here, and he does a good job here. He's got some awesome sort of sideburns too in this, and both of those are clearly superior actors to Bob Crane. So those scenes, are quite unbalanced. And in the end, his wife does do a header down the stairs kind of thing, or she dies, and then we see a ghost appear and sort of say, well. Basically the implication is he's going to keep haunting this man, but he's charged unless he pays a fee of $2,000 a month, which is what Bob Crane has used earlier about how much money he'll be getting when his wife dies, $2,000 a month, or something like that, or to keep his lover in the lifestyle she's accustomed to, and basically this ghost wants to charge him that, and it ends, and so he's left with that, and it seems a bit silly. The character doesn't really get his comeuppance, being haunted by a ghost for a certain. Some seems weird. Why would a ghost want money? They do explain it. He says, before I died, and we find out this guy was kind of killed by his wife or something. He also had he calls it a bird on the side, lovely. And he wants to keep her in the custody. So it doesn't really make sense. Why does a ghost want money? But if you go back to the original story, it's kind of that too. But in that one, the ghost doesn't even explain why he wants the money. Just says, well, I'm going to charge. Haunting a man is much more fun than haunting a house unless you pay me £50 a month. That's how it is in the original story. So the story doesn't work. The leads aren't very good. And it's kind of not that funny, and it's not that scary, so it's just there, really. It's a pretty weak segment all round, in my opinion. The second segment is also pretty poor. However, it's got some fun aspects in that Victor Buono's in it. It's Count Dracula, and we see him flying. There's a bat on a string, pretty much, fly in and turn into Victor Buono as Dracula with blue makeup. And that's fun. And there's a young blonde woman lying there. And as he goes to bite her, she just says, I gave at the office. And he just gets out a notepad, makes a little note, and flies off again. And that's about it. Victor Buono does a little bit of mugging, which is fun. And the only other noticeable thing about this episode is it's written by Jack Laird, the producer, directed by William Howe, and it kind of. The other thing to mention is the blonde girl is played by Jack Laird's stepdaughter. Journey Laird is her name. The daughter of his wife. And she's okay, but it's only like about 90 seconds in all, so okay, that's fine. Okay, it's one of those one-note jokes that don't quite work. It's okay. I mean, we've seen a couple of them that are really good earlier in the season, but this one, it just kind of falls a bit flat. The next one really raises the game. It's a much better piece of work. It's written by Rod Serling, so that probably helps. Directed by Gerald Freeman. And this is played by Forrest Tucker, him from F Troop, as basically a snake oil salesman, talking about his rejuvenator. And the episode is called, the story is called Dr. Stringfellow's Rejuvenator. In the Old West, promising to sell this bottle of stuff that is a cure-all for anything for $1. In this kind of rundown ramshackle town, he's got like a helper. It's not quite clear if the man is his slave. He's a black man. It's not quite sure if he's his slave or servant or what the relationship is. It probably doesn't really matter. The man does have some agency. He's played by Don Pedro Colley. Some agency within the relationship, so it feels more like a master-servant relationship rather than a master-slave. In addition, in this town, we get the town drunk played by Murray Hamilton. We've seen him before in Anthologic, in the episode, Twilight Zone episode, One for the Angels. He played the devil, being convinced by the salesman to sort of hold off. Or, sorry, Mr. Death, not the devil, Mr. Death. Death is who he is in that. And in this, he's basically the town drunk, but who used to be a doctor. Murray Hamilton. I should say you'd also know Murray Hamilton for several things, but probably most famously he's the mayor in Jaws. That's where everyone would recognise him from, right? Who then comments on this Hux the salesman as he goes. He was a doctor, but he's a drunk now, but he knows enough to know medical stuff, and he keeps commenting on it. Which does also lead to the question of why doesn't he help if he knows what the issue is, but rather than just comment on it. But such is life, right? Such is life. So Forrest Tucker is selling this stuff, and a farmer comes to him. Good performance by this guy. I think it's Lou Frizzell talking about his daughter who's dying, who really does not look well. Forrest Tucker sort of sees the man is desperate. You can see he's got a bit of a conscience because Forrest Tucker can portray that. Forrest Tucker's a pretty good actor here. That is, wrestling with his conscience, but in the end, he does say she needs a bottle of this, $1, and if you give me $1 for, he says something like for my titles. He keeps going about he's got this doctorate from this place, Vienna, and this place. He hasn't got anything, obviously. But, so he basically gets $2 out of the man. It looks like he could have taken him for a lot more. He said, I've got this. He could have said, they've got this special stuff for $50. But he doesn't go that far. But even so, the girl is obviously dying. In fact, the medical drunk guy actually says, she's got full-blown appendicitis, probably peritonitis. She won't last out the day, and you're giving her your stuff. And there's this argument of Forrest Tucker saying, well, if I give people belief, doesn't that help them? I'm not just selling them nonsense, I'm selling them a hope. So there's that quite cool dialogue going on. Rod Serling, very Rod Serling dialogue, very purple. But Rod Serling sells it because he's quite good at that kind of thing. And Forrest Tucker sells that dialogue too because he acts well. What happens then, obviously, is they talk. The man actually catches Forrest Tucker before he leaves town and sort of says she's getting worse and worse, and he kind of talks himself into being able to cure her. He's saying, well, I can give her enough, please. She can burst out of that coffin herself if she needs to, and stuff like that. And in the end, she does die, but he's about to leave town. He goes outside. We get this quite weird day for night shooting, which Night Gallery just has, where he sees a girl sitting on a porch, rocking chair in the town, and he approaches it. And as he approaches, the sign falls off. The Undertaker sign falls off the thing above him, and you kind of get the impression it struck him. And then we see his coffin and his servant and the Undertaker talking. And I think the doctor comes into it too, and they kind of saying, well, he couldn't, I think the Undertaker says something like, I don't get it. The sign missed him by a good 2 foot. I don't understand what happened. His heart just gave out. And the servant guy actually sort of says, there's nothing here. And he just throws a lamp into the travelling salesman's coach, and it burns down. And it ends. It's pretty good. I like this one. Good segment. Much stronger than the first one. I'll discount the second one because it was such a short throwaway thing. There's not much talking about. So, yeah, pretty good. The full segment I really liked too. This was written and directed by Theodore J. Flicker, who actually appears in it, with John Astin. John Astin is a Night Gallery alumni. He's directed some episodes as well as appeared. And in this, he's a little old to play the role, but it's John Astin, right? So that's fine. He plays a hippie. And he's got the sort of weird long haircut, that sort of Sonny Bono looking haircut and funny glasses. And the clothes are unbelievable. He's got like two-tone leather boots and stripy trousers and all this. Essentially gets in a car crash, and as the car's going, we see this quite weird and interesting montage of demons' faces, these white-faced, piggish demons sort of saying words like parasite, scum, things. I can't remember. It wasn't scum. It was slightly more PG than that. shouting insults as the car rolls down the embankment. And then we see him kind of come through a chute into a room where he starts looking around and he throws something on the floor, and this large lady comes in, and he says, he reads something and throws it on the floor like a leaflet. You're in hell, this is the waiting room, kind of thing. And he throws the leaflet on the floor, and this large lady comes in and sort of says, don't you do this. And he's saying, hey lady, and she goes, I'm fat lady, which is a weird way of... and it turns out a lot of people actually kind of refer themselves as cliches in this. It's kind of funny. So he's the hippie, she's the fat lady, right? I must say it was also based on a short story by Harry Turner. I don't know the name of that short story, but this one segment is called Hell's Bells, so I suspect the short story's got the same name. And he finds out he's in Hell's rating room, and he goes, well, okay, that's not so bad. Hell might be interesting. And then he goes into another room, and he meets some old guy, who is, I have to say, the old man who finds Agent Cooper in the beginning of season 2. The really old man that finds Agent Cooper at the beginning of season 2 of Twin Peaks. And he still kind of looks the same in this, even though this was 20 odd years earlier, and he's got that Norman Rockwell kind of look, and the hippie John Astin starts to try and talk to him, but everything he mentions, the man just turns into a boring conversation. He says, how about John Astin, for example, goes, how about the Beatles splitting up? And he goes, Beatles, to get rid of Beatles you need a tincture of arsenic, and you do this, that. And he says, no, I meant the group. And the man says, the group? Oh yeah, my sister had that. Basically he turns everything into a boring conversation. And the hippie goes, okay, at least there's some records in. He finds these records he likes to look at. He puts one on, and it's like this horrible sort of middle of the road band music. But then he can't figure out to turn it off again. So he's stuck with this music, stuck with this boring bloke. Then he finds a couple in the corner with Hawaiian shirts, and they say, oh yeah, we got 8,500 slides of our holiday. Let's talk you through them. And he goes, no man, that's a drag. That's a bummer. And he asks for the devil to appear. And the devil appears, and this is Theodore J. Flicker dressed up as the devil. A little short guy, red makeup, a beard, horns. And he says, come on man, when do we get to hell? And also earlier in the episode we see the hippie dreaming about hell, and he sees people being tortured and all sorts of horrible things happening to him in like a Goyer-esque picture. Which I guess is the night gallery entry. And he's saying, hey man, when are we going to get to this? And the devil's like, no, you don't understand. This is your hell. That's everyone's hell's different, and this is your version of hell. Ironically, there's exactly the same room up there, because this is someone's idea of heaven. And the hippie's like, and starts like hitting the floor, and the episode ends. I kind of like it. It's a bit of it's a punchline episode. It's a bit longer than the usual ones, but I liked it a lot. Hell's Bells is a pretty fun one. So the whole episode was saved by the last two, for sure. The last two are the strongest entries. I've got a feeling a few people might have tuned out early on for this one, but yeah, I quite enjoyed it. So I can recommend it based on the last two stories, Dr. Stringfellow's Rejuvenate and Hell's Bells. But for House with Ghost, and for the one don't think I said the title, but get this: A Midnight Visit to the Neighbourhood Blood Bank, which isn't quite right because this isn't the blood bank, right? I don't understand the title actually. Those two are very weak. So yeah, that's it for this episode of Night Gallery. So, it's up and down. That's what Night Gallery is. However, Night Gallery does hold a special place for me in Anthologic, because it's the only show which each episode is an anthology, which, I kind of like the fact it's multi-storied. I like the format. I think it could work quite well if it were ever revived. So yeah, that's quite encouraging. So, okay, I think that's it for me. And happy 2022 to everyone. Hope everyone had a good new year. And but before I go, may I ask, is anybody out there?
There's nobody here but us chickens.
We now return control of your television set to you. Until next week at this same time, when the control voice will take you to